Hi, I'm Sean, and today I'm going to be discussing the topic of whether compulsory voting is necessary for democracy. Compulsory voting is when all people that are eligible to vote are not necessarily forced, but are encouraged to vote via fine. One of the largest countries that has compulsory voting is Australia, and one of the largest democracies that does not have compulsory voting is the United States. One of the largest reasons to push for compulsory voting is that it really helps engagement in politics. Allowing everybody to vote and making everybody vote makes them actively be more engaged in politics. This would mean that more people would be more educated, hopefully, and it would allow a better flowing democracy. Therefore, the idea that democracy cannot flourish without every single person voicing their opinions on politics. This way, politicians would actually have to reflect every single person in the voter base. This is a big issue that we run into, specifically in the United States. It's been discussed a lot about how most of the people that are voting are older. Therefore, there's more policies that are pushed for older people, where if there was compulsory voting, the idea is that since everybody of age above, let's say 18 is voting, everybody will be equally represented by their population in the populace. Therefore, their policies will reflect the populace of the state as a whole instead of just specific pockets that tend to have the time and the means to always vote. And the idea that democracy is less effective when only that small portion goes into vote. If the only people that were voting were old people because we had to vote on a Wednesday during the work week, there would obviously be a huge demographic of people that work a 9 to 5 that would be out of it. So the idea of compulsory voting means that everybody has to vote with a fine. There's a lot of negative points on this topic too, because compulsory voting kind of is necessary, but I don't think, in my opinion, is necessarily necessary for democracy because you're kind of stifling people's right to speech. Because a democracy should not just be based off of who's voting, it should also be like a living, breathing government. It should have understanding that some groups might need more help than other groups. Just because they're the majority doesn't mean that they're necessarily the most important. There can be minorities that are being affected. And that's why I think compulsory voting just kind of glosses over just the general facts of why governments need to help people. A lot of people are against compulsory voting because they see it as an infringement on their rights of their freedoms of speech. And also, a lot of people feel like it would force a lot of people that don't care about politics, but just vote because they don't want to pay the fine. This in turn could lead to a lot of people just voting just because they have to. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting engaged into politics and they're really understanding the politicians that they're voting for. And the idea that just because you're forcing people to vote, people should want to play a role within their democracy. They should want to vote for a politician for a specific reason. They shouldn't just be forced to vote, because in my opinion, that is kind of like glazing over the whole point of the democracy. If you're not having people that want to be active in your government, it means that your democracy is not working correctly. And we can see that democracy definitely can work with encouraged voting, but not necessarily mandatory voting.